Bong-soon is an unemployed girl cursed with insane super strength, which she can barely control. However, everything changes when she accidentally saves a filthy rich CEO from danger and gets hired as his personal bodyguard. Now, while she fights crime, her boss fights his growing feelings for the strongest girl he's ever met. The story opens with Bong-soon saving a bus during an accident, and the male protagonist, Min-hyuk, who was on board, becomes obsessed with uncovering the identity of his masked savior. Despite her immense strength, Bong-soon is a loser who can't keep a job. It is then revealed that the women in her family inherit this extraordinary power, but using it immorally causes them to lose it forever. After her mother lost her powers by being a greedy bully, she gave birth to Bong-soon and her loser twin brother, Bong-ki. Though she is struggling to stay afloat, Bong-soon still dreams of becoming a game developer. One day after getting stalked by a masked dude, Min-hyuk runs into Bong-soo beating up some annoying gang members. At the police station, Detective Guk-do, who is Bong-soon's longtime crush, questions her about the incident while she swoons over him. Just then, Min-hyuk arrives and lies that the gang members beat themselves during the fight, but instead of thanking him, Bong-soon calls him a loser for not stepping in during the fight earlier. Despite her rudeness, Min-hyuk is amazed by her uniqueness. At her family's bakery, Bong-soon is scolded by Jin-yi for being a jobless loser. At the station, Guk-do tells his colleagues that he grew up with Bong-soon, and they also discuss Min-hyuk's company, which created the popular game Albertan Chronicles. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the angry gang members prepare to exact revenge on Bong-soon, and the moment her brother, Bong-ki, sees the injuries, he recognizes it as his sister's masterpiece. The first time he discovered that Bong-soon had powers was after she saved him when they were kidnapped. When he returns home, he scolds Bong-soon for overusing her powers as he fears that the curse might affect her, but by the following day, Bong-soon's powers are intact. Meanwhile, Min-hyuk looks through resumes to hire a bodyguard, but he is unable to forget Bong-soon. He instructs his secretary to hire her, but Guk-do refuses to release Bong-soon's personal information. Guk-do is infamously known for being too headstrong, and he once arrested a corrupt congressman, but instead of receiving an award, the chief demoted him to the worst team in the police force. Later, Min-hyuk meets with the police chief to get Bong-soon's information. However, he is disgusted when the chief talks about his father, and apparently, Min-hyuk built his company without his father's help. The following day, Secretary Gong offers Bong-soon the bodyguard job, and she only accepts it when she learns that Min-hyuk is the owner of her dream company, Aimsoft. At the bakery, Jin-yi learns about the gang incident from Guk-do's mother and immediately heads home to scold Bong-soon, but Bong-soon assures her that the curse didn't take effect. Later, Bong-soon receives a call from Guk-do, but he hangs up before she can tell him about her new job. The next day, she happily heads to Aimsoft, where Min-hyuk roasts her for having zero work experience. Though shocked by Bong-soon's outrageous demands, Min-hyuk still offers her the job and requests that they arm wrestle to test her strength. He even uses his two hands, but Bong-soon still wins against him, so he offers her a salary of 60 million won a year. Later, Min-hyuk makes Secretary Gong and Bong-soon have a chicken fight. Gong is confident he can win since he is an ex-marine, but Bong-soon convinces him to wear a helmet. Despite using very little effort, Bong-soon hits Gong into a wall, causing him to be rushed to the hospital. Shortly after, Bong-soon convinces Min-hyuk to transfer her to the game strategy department if she excels at her job as a bodyguard. That night, Guk-do visits Bong-soon and gives her a taser for protection. Before she can talk to him, he leaves abruptly after receiving a call from his girlfriend, Hee-ji. Meanwhile, just around Bong-soon's neighborhood, a stalker attacks a girl in an alley, resulting in a gory crime scene. The following day, Bong-soo heads to work only to see a digital threat on Min-hyuk's computer. Min-hyuk refuses to involve the police and instead wants Bong-soon to help him catch the culprit. Just then, he receives another call from the blackmailer and puts it on speaker for Bong-soon to listen in. After the call, Min-hyuk and Bong-soon prepare to leave the office. In case of a bomb threat, Min-hyuk hides behind a pillar while making Bong-soon start the car engine. At the family bakery, Jin-yi and her friends discuss the crime and redevelopment of their area. She gets jealous when she sees her husband flirting with Guk-do's mother, Mi-hwa. They then ask Mi-hwa to sign a petition against the redevelopment, but she refuses because she supports the redevelopment. Jin-yi and her friends dislike Mi-hwa for being a sassy, popular writer. Meanwhile, Bong-soon follows Min-hyuk around while he shops like crazy, and he only gives her ice cream as a reward for slaving away. Later, the stalker appears, S and Min-hyuk takes a picture of his motorcycle plate number. After their outing, Min-hyuk follows Bong-soon to her family's bakery and draws attention from everyone. That night, Bong-soon heads home to tell her best friend Hyung-sik about her new job. She also vents to Hyung-sik about Guk-do always ignoring her. During dinner, Jin-yi tells Bong-soon to find a way to marry Min-hyuk, but Bong-soon shocks them by declaring that Min-hyuk likes men. That night, a masked dude attacks another girl in the alley, throwing the neighborhood into chaos again. Apparently, the victim survived due to the timely intervention of a witness. Guk-do blames himself because the crime occurred at the same scene as the previous one, and only shortly after he left. Later, the witness narrates how he had saved the girl, but he didn't see the assailant's face. That night, Bong-soon scares off a few bullies by showing off her strength. She then gives the bullied boy her number, asking him to contact her if anyone ever bullies him again. Due to the recent crimes, the police installs more surveillance cameras around Bong-soon's neighborhood. Min-hyuk investigates his stalker while the police discuss the autopsy results. After the discussion, Guk-do heads to the hospital to compare the wounds on the first and second victims. Bong-soon also arrives at the hospital to visit Secretary Gong, who has still not recovered from their fatal chicken fight. She agitates him further by suggesting he drink poop wine to heal his injuries. Bong-soon's day immediately brightens when she runs into Guk-do. While they are chatting, a suspicious doctor enters the victim's room, and after he leaves, Guk-do instructs Bong-soon to watch the door. The victim starts convulsing, and the same doctor enters the room to carry her out. Shortly after Guk-do returns, he realizes that they have been tricked by a fake doctor. He immediately rushes out, but loses them in an underground parking lot. Bong-soon apologizes to Guk-do, confidently telling him that she remembers the culprit's voice. Elsewhere, the creep dresses the victim in a wedding dress and injects her again. Meanwhile, Guk-do is scolded by his superior, and later he requests witness protection for Bong-soon. At home, Bong-soon continues to worry about the kidnap victim while Bong-ki consoles her. The following day, Min-hyuk discusses the incident with Bong-soon, and he believes the two crimes were committed by the same culprit, but the police disagree. Guk-do then calls to inform Bong-soon that he is sending an officer to protect her. After the call, Min-hyuk bluntly speculates that Bong-soon must like Guk-do, and she agrees without hesitation. Later, Min-hyuk is frustrated when Bong-soon's protection detail arrives at the office. Min-hyuk tries to convince him that Bong-soon doesn't need protection, but the detective refuses to budge, so they all go out together. Elsewhere, the kidnap victim finally awakens to see her assailant meticulously cleaning her up. While Min-hyuk attends a press conference, Bong-soon gets frustrated after losing the trail of a suspicious masked man. She tries to ditch the detective, but he continues to follow her like an annoying piece of gum. Later, the detective enters the restroom but stays inside for too long, so Min-hyuk rushes back in only to find him bleeding. They rush the detective to the hospital, and Min-hyuk tells Bong-soon to quit since things have become dangerous, but she refuses. Min-hyuk then tells her about his pathetic family and 3 half-brothers from different mothers. Apparently, Min-hyuk's brothers became his enemies after he impressed their father with his success. Elsewhere, Guk-do meets up with his cellist girlfriend, Hee-ji, but he forgets that it is their 100th day anniversary. Later, Min-hyuk tells Bong-soon to stay at his house, but she refuses. To convince her, Min-hyuk tells her to use him to make Guk-do jealous, so she agrees. Soon after, Guk-do comes to Min-hyuk's house to see Bong-soon after receiving a call about the restroom incident. He tries to leave with Bong-soon, but Min-hyuk refuses to let her go. Guk-do then calls Jin-yi, hoping to use her to force Bong-soon back home, but it backfires. Jin-yi tells Guk-do to head home instead, and then urges Bong-soon to enjoy herself. Refusing to back down, Guk-do tries to convince Min-hyuk to let him take Bong-soon home, but Min-hyuk teases Guk-do, inviting him to sleep over. This makes Bong-soon convinced that Min-hyuk actually likes guys. Before leaving, Guk-do gives Bong-soon an emergency pager in case she is in danger. Later, Bong-soon discovers Min-hyuk's secret basement where he creates his games. They decide to sleep there, and Min-hyuk narrates how he lost his mother and was bullied by 2 of his half-brothers. He also explains that he hates the police because his corrupt ex-thug of a father has dealings with them. Bong-soon explains that she likes the police because of Guk-do, and she fell in love with him in middle grade. To get her mind off Guk-do, Min-hyuk makes Bong-soon play games with him. The following morning, Bong-soon is startled when she wakes up to see Min-hyuk next to her. Later, she surprises him by preparing breakfast and explains that she learned how to cook because her mother is a diva who refuses to cook. Since Bong-soon already believes that he likes men, Min-hyuk teases her about Gukdu's peaches, making her slam a chopstick into the table. Later, they head out to the stalker's address, which Min-hyuk obtained by investigating the license plate numbers. Meanwhile, Gukdu interviews the injured detective about the restroom incident, because he believes that the kidnapper and the attacker are the same, but the detective disagrees. Bong-soon and Min-hyuk arrive at the stalker's address, and Bong-soon knocks him out with a light slap before dragging him out. After he wakes up, she starts tying him up, but her head mistakenly hits the taser, knocking the man unconscious again. He later wakes up to explain to them that his motorcycle was stolen, and Bong-soon apologizes to him. Shortly after, Bong-soon and Min-hyuk head to the station to see Gukdu. Min-hyuk clearly lets him know that the restroom assailant is different from the hospital kidnapper, but he refuses to go into any details. Bong-soon then steps on Min-hyuk's feet to prevent him from revealing her bodyguard job, as she has already lied to Gukdu that she is Min-hyuk's secretary. After their meeting, Bong-soon escorts Min-hyuk to the hospital to treat his fractured toe, and they run into Bong-ki. Meanwhile, Gukdu meets Hee-ji in the same hospital while Bong-soon takes Min-hyuk to Secretary Gong's room, and one of the gang members recognizes her. Elsewhere, Bong-ki scolds Bong-soon for making several people end up in the hospital. She then follows him only to see Gukdu with his girlfriend. While Bong-ki treats Hee-ji, Gukdu angrily scolds Bong-soon for following Min-hyuk everywhere. Suddenly, Bong-soon snaps back, asking him why he cares about her when he already has a girlfriend. Before he can answer, Bong-ki returns with Hee-ji, and Bong-soon leaves with Min-hyuk, who witnesses the whole drama. Later, she returns home to freshen up, but Min-hyuk calls her to return to the hospital. At the hospital, the gang boss, Soo-tak, arrives to check on his minions, and he angrily tells them to hire Bong-soon or destroy her if she refuses. On her way back to the hospital, Bong-soon runs into the school bullies from last time. They even brought more people with them to handle her, but she completely crushes them all. Meanwhile, Soo-tak is surprised when he sees Bong-soon leaving the hospital with Min-hyuk. Elsewhere, Gukdu gives Hee-ji an early White Day present because he will be on duty on the actual day. That night, Min-hyuk takes Bong-soon to his family's house for a meeting, and he instructs her to look for the real mastermind behind the stalking incident. Min-hyuk's father, Chairman Ahn, then announces that he will be making Min-hyuk the heir to the Osung group. Everyone protests except Min-hyuk's older brother, and Bong-soon studies them to assess their threat level. After the chaotic dinner, Bong-soon tells Min-hyuk that her main suspect is Chairman Ahn. Later, he drops her off, and Jin-yi urges Bong-soon to be more proactive towards Min-hyuk. Elsewhere, the kidnapper kidnaps another victim and even bumps into Bong-soon at a pharmacy. At home, Bong-soon tells her family that Min-hyuk might like Gukdu, so Jin-yi urges her not to lose to Gukdu. Meanwhile, an unseen tension seems to be brewing between Hee-ji and Bong-ki as Hee-ji calls, offering to treat Bong-ki to lunch. Later, Bong-soon heads out to buy beer, and just around the corner, the third victim manages to escape, but the kidnapper catches up with her. After capturing her, he scrapes the vehicle to cover his tracks. Later, Gukdu calls to check on Bong-soon, but she snaps at him when he mentions his girlfriend. Shortly after, she also hangs up on Min-hyuk, and the next day she wakes from a nightmare where she saw Min-hyuk grabbing Gukdu's peaches. Meanwhile, Jin-yi and her friends visit a fortune teller for advice regarding the redevelopment plan and Bong-soon's marriage. Later, Min-hyuk blackmails Bong-soon into cooking for him. The food moves him to tears because it reminds him of his mother. After venting to her friend on the phone, Bong-soon discovers that Min-hyuk had heard every trashy thing she said. After scolding her, they head to the park only to be shot at by a sniper. One of the metal balls hits Min-hyuk, so Bong-soon carries him in her arms while people watch in shock. On the way, Min-hyuk actually wakes up, but he pretends to be unconscious to avoid the embarrassing scene. He stops pretending when Bong-soon shoves him into the car like paper, almost shattering his skull. He refuses to go to the hospital, so she drives him home instead. While Bong-soon is tending to Min-hyuk's wound, sparks suddenly start flying between them. Min-hyuk is curious about the source of Bong-soon's strength, and he asks her if she is on steroids, but she brushes him off. Just then, the stalker calls to gloat and even threatens to use real bullets next time. He warns Min-hyuk to give up his inheritance as the Osung Group heir or face losing the Ainsoft company. After the call, Min-hyuk is pissed and tells Bong-soon to head home even though she offers to stay with him. After she leaves, he stares at a painting of his hooded hero while thinking about the first time he left home just to avoid fighting with his brothers over an inheritance. Meanwhile, Bong-soon stops by her father's bakery to see him, and he gives her some of his hidden stash before her greedy mother can take it all. Elsewhere, Hee-ji buys Bong-ki lunch to thank him for taking care of her in the hospital. Bong-soon uses the money from her father to buy new clothes despite her non-existent fashion sense. She then receives a call and heads to the nearby school to see the bullies from last time. Apparently, she has been making them pick up trash since that day. After reporting their duty for the day, they fall to their knees, asking Bong-soon to be their boss. At the bakery, Soo-tak arrives with his right-hand man, Jaws, to scout Bong-soon's surroundings. While Bong-soon is trying to figure out how to handle her new minions, a ball hits her, so she angrily kicks it into space, leaving everyone shocked. Just like that, Bong-soon becomes the neighborhood overlord, and the bullies literally worship her. Bong-soon recalls how she used to be a nuisance in school, and it was during this time that she decided to hide her strength after overhearing that Guk-do likes fragile girls. Bong-soon even prayed, but Guk-do-hae started dating someone else, causing her to dislike the big guy in the sky and even destroy his statue. Back in the present, Guk-do replays the suspect's recording, but Bong-soon says it is not the fake doctor's voice. Later, she asks Bong-ki about Hee-ji, who lied to Guk-do about going out of town, but she was actually having lunch with Bong-ki. Meanwhile, Min-hyuk calls his favorite brother, Dong-seok, and suspects his other brothers, Dong-ha or Kyung-won, as the mastermind behind the stalking incident. Kyung-shim is planning to go to the movies to cheer Bong-soon up, and Min-hyuk also texts Bong-soon, asking to join them. He even offers to book the tickets, so Kyung-shim urges Bong-soon to accept. Later, they head out with Bong-ki to meet Min-hyuk while Soo-tak secretly follows them. After watching the movie, they all head to a club. Bong-soon gets drunk and lets loose on the dance floor while Min-hyuk gently watches her. The music suddenly stops when Bong-soon breaks a pole, shocking everyone. The following day, Jin-yi scolds Bong-soon, reminding her how she threatened to destroy Min-hyuk for lusting after Guk-do's peaches. Later, the police finally receive a report about the missing third victim. Elsewhere, the missing woman wakes up, and the creep informs her that she is his second bride. While Bong-soon thinks about how to apologize to Min-hyuk, he is busy thinking about how awesome she looked at the club. He then calls her, and instead of scolding her, Min-hyuk gently tells her to take her time coming to work. This makes Bong-soon start to see Min-hyuk in a new light, and she even praises him in front of Kyung-shim. On her way to work, Bong-soon suddenly bumps into the same fake doctor from the hospital. She tries to follow him but loses him in the crowd. Later, Bong-soon secretly breaks a creep's finger on the train. At work, she daydreams about being a game hero until Min-hyuk snaps her back to reality. During lunch, she proudly shows off the smartwatch from Guk-do, making Min-hyuk jealous. Bong-soon also tells him that she ran into the kidnapper near the subway. Later, Min-hyuk shows Bong-soon her new workspace and gives her grammar books. Soon, a video of her club dancing goes viral, prompting Jin-yi to scold her for embarrassing the family. Min-hyuk teases her about it, and the video spreads through the neighborhood, even reaching the hospitalized gangsters. Later, Gong returns from the hospital, bad-mouthing Bong-soon, only to panic when he sees her nearby. After she leaves, Min-hyuk calls someone to take down the video and informs Guk-do about Bong-soon encountering the kidnapper. Meanwhile, Bong-soon indirectly threatens Gong to stop talking behind her back. Soon after, Min-hyuk gets carried away watching Bong-soon sleep, but Guk-do barges in and ruins the moment. He scolds Bong-soon for hiding the subway incident and argues with Min-hyuk over who should take her home. Bong-soon briefly celebrates having two men fight over her, only for them to stop, crushing her fantasy. Min-hyuk decides to drive her home, while Guk-do returns to the station to continue investigating. He finally sees the missing woman's vehicle in surveillance footage, and the police scramble to the location, but find nothing. Later, Min-hyuk leaves Bong-soon's bakery feeling uncomfortable because of Jin-yi. At the hospital, Bong-ki gets angry after hearing the gangsters discuss taking revenge on Bong-soon. Meanwhile, Hee-ji visits the hospital again to invite Bong-ki for lunch, and he agrees. She even ignores a message from Guk-do, leaving him miserable. That night, Bong-soon discovers that all her club videos have been deleted, and Kyung-shim suspects it might be Min-hyuk's work. She also suspects that Min-hyuk likes women, but Bong-soon disagrees. Shortly after, Kyung-shim is assaulted by the kidnapper, but Bong-soo arrives just in time to save her. At the bakery, Soo-tak introduces himself to the neighborhood association as the director in charge of the redevelopment. He then offers to join them in patrolling the neighborhood with his hefty employees. The following day, Kyung-shim thanks Bong-soon for saving her, and Jin-yi arrives at the hospital to scold Bong-soon for not capturing the kidnapper. Unaware of the incident, Min-hyuk anxiously waits in the office to give Bong-soon a gift. Her empty workspace makes him lonely, so he calls Gong to keep him company and even gives him the gift he bought for Bong-soon. Guk-do arrives at the hospital to get Kyung-shim's statement, but Bong-soon stops Kyung-shim from revealing the truth about her strength. Elsewhere, the kidnapper is furious, after getting bested by Bong-soon. At the hospital, Guk-do scolds her for leaving home without the smartwatch. Now that Bong-soon has angered the kidnapper, Guk-do suggests she stay in Min-hyuk's house for a while. Later, he goes to see Min-hyuk, asking him to house Bong-soon. After he leaves, Min-hyuk suspects that Guk-do might have feelings for Bong-soon after all. The following day, Bong-soon dolls up to have Guk-do drive her to work, only for him to scold her for dressing too flashy. However, Bong-soon's love-fried brain only hears him calling her pretty. After arriving at the office, Bong-soon continues to act like a love-sick fool while fantasizing about Guk-do. At home, Jin-yi happily prepares to send Bong-soon to Min-hyuk's house. While the police hit another dead end, Guk-do informs them that the culprit might be wearing a mask. While unpacking her bags at Min-hyuk's house, the sleazy lingerie, packed by Jin-yi, falls out of Bong-soon's luggage. That night, both Min-hyuk and Bong-soon are unable to sleep, so Bong-soon sneaks out to lure out the kidnapper, but Min-hyuk follows her. He then convinces her to return home, and Guk-do also arrives at the house, declaring that he will also be staying with them. The two men begin arguing, making Bong-soon excited, until Min-hyuk suggests that Guk-do sleep in his room. To stop him from stealing her crush, Bong-soon blurts out Min-hyuk's interest in men, only for Min-hyuk to retaliate by exposing Bong-soon as his bodyguard, but Guk-do dismisses both claims. They consider sleeping separately, but decide to stay up all night because of paranoid fantasies. Guk-do and Min-hyuk compete in several games, including drinking, while Bong-soon miserably watches them. After getting drunk, both men pass out, and Bong-soon effortlessly carries them out of the bar. When she steps away to call a cab, someone tries to rob them, but Bong-soon beats up the muggers. She takes the boys home, dumping Min-hyuk like trash while treating Guk-do like a treasure. Later, Min-hyuk wakes to find Guk-do tucked in like Sleeping Beauty, and he roughs him up in irritation. He then checks on Bong-soon, and her appearance suddenly reminds him of the hooded girl from his past. The following day, Jin-yi is furious when Kyung-shim tells her that Guk-do crashed at Min-hyuk's house. During breakfast, Bong-soon pretends to be unable to open a jar, so Guk-do steps in to play the hero. Min-hyuk and Guk-do start arguing about who won the drinking game last night, so Bong-soon intervenes, reminding them how they flirted with each other after getting drunk. A few moments later, the stalker calls to threaten Min-hyuk again, but Min-hyuk refuses to let Guk-do help him. Guk-do is soon called back to help the team arrest a suspect in the kidnapping case. Meanwhile, Min-hyuk learns that a tabloid exposed his preference for men, causing Osung Group's stock to plummet. Bong-soon finally realizes that Min-hyuk helped her delete her viral video when he calls the same person to help him delete all negative trending topics. Min-hyuk also uncovers the stalker's personal details and discovers that he works for Soo-tak's company, which is closely linked to Osung Group. Apparently, before Soo-tak founded his own gangster company, he used to work for Min-hyuk's father. On their way to catch the stalker, they encounter a rude man harassing a woman, and Min-hyuk steps in to mediate, but Bong-soon sneaks into the guy's car to teach him a lesson. Back at the station, the police hit another dead end after discovering that they might have caught the wrong guy. Elsewhere, Min-hyuk questions Bong-soon about the true origin of her powers, and she explains it to him. Min-hyuk then encourages her to use her powers for good, just like she always wanted, and he even promises to help. That night, Hee-ji apologizes to Guk-do, revealing that she might be falling for someone else. At another chaotic family dinner, Chairman Ahn pressures Min-hyuk to marry a woman from a distinguished family, but Min-hyuk suddenly introduces Bong-soon as his girlfriend. Bong-soon plays along, but later scolds him for using her, and her mother calls, urging Bong-soon to do the hanky-panky with Min-hyuk. The following day, Min-hyuk wakes Bong-soon to begin her journey toward becoming a superhero, and she quickly surpasses all his expectations. At the station, the police finally release a sketch of the culprit based on Kyung-shim's testimony. Later, Guk-do interviews Bong-soon about the kidnapping, and she provides a detailed account of the smell she perceived from the culprit. After the interview, Bong-soon notices that Guk-do seems upset and asks him about it. He tells her about his conversation with Hee-ji, and Bong-soon offers him words of comfort. Min-hyuk observes the interaction between them and burns with jealousy. In the neighborhood, Bong-soon's new minions get into an argument with Soo-tak's gangster group over gum being thrown on the ground. Later, Bong-soon's ninja grandmother teaches the gangsters a lesson for openly harassing a young girl. That night, the kidnapper, Jang Hyun, finally reveals his face to his third victim, and it turns out to be the same man who was chatting with a young female pharmacist earlier. Using information he obtained from the pharmacist the previous day, Jang Hyun secretly follows and captures her early the next morning. Meanwhile, someone breaks into Min-hyuk's room, threatening him with a knife. Meanwhile, Bong-soo stops another attacker in the kitchen and also knocks out the one in Min-hyuk's room with the same frying pan. It turns out that Soo-tak is the mastermind behind this particular attack, and he actually believes that two trained assassins can handle Bong-soon. Min-hyuk recognizes one of the attackers as the same person who stabbed the detective and shot metal balls at him. Bong-soon uses the blanket from Jin-yi on the attackers, but the love charm from the shaman meant for Min-hyuk hits them instead. The following morning, Soo-tak calls to check the mission update, but Min-hyuk picks up the call instead. Min-hyuk threatens to call the police if Soo-tak doesn't reveal the real mastermind behind the incident. When Bong-soon wakes up the attackers, the love charm activates, causing them to fall for each other. Meanwhile, at Osung Group, the shareholders try to oust Min-hyuk for running late to the shareholders' meeting, but Min-hyuk finally arrives. He apologizes and video calls Bong-soon to show them the reason for his lateness. Min-hyuk tells them about the blackmailing incident, promising to catch the mastermind and parade them before the shareholders. Later, Soo-tak receives a scolding from his secret employer and learns that some of his men are in the hospital because of an old woman. After the shareholders' meeting, Min-hyuk discusses possible suspects with his father, explaining Soo-tak's involvement. Later, Soo-tak offers Min-hyuk a file containing his employer's details in exchange for the release of his men. He even tries to poach Bong-soon, but Min-hyuk completely ignores his request. After Soo-tak leaves, Min-hyuk plays the recording and is devastated to discover that the mastermind is his most trusted half-brother, Dong-seok. Bong-soon is also stunned by the betrayal, and she drags Min-hyuk out to try to cheer him up. Elsewhere, the kidnapper, Jang Hyun, cleans up his third bride, explaining his plan to gather 7 brides, and at the police station, the pharmacist's mother files a missing persons report. After a fun day, Min-hyuk and Bong-soon head home, and Min-hyuk narrates the bus incident from years ago. Tension rises between them until a call from Bong-soon's grandma ruins the moment. Later, Min-hyuk walks Bong-soon home to visit her grandma, but they run into each other on the street, and grandma calls Min-hyuk's son-in-law, making things awkward. After Min-hyuk leaves, Bong-soon enjoys a sweet moment with her mother and grandmother. That night, Dong-seok apologizes to Min-hyuk, and though Min-hyuk forgives him, the peaceful dynamic between them disappears. The following day, Min-hyuk trains Bong-soon on controlling her power, but she is unable to hold back. During a friendly fight, things almost turn steamy between them until Min-hyuk quickly pulls away. They continue the training until Bong-soon is finally able to control her strength, and as a reward, Min-hyuk allows her to join the game strategy department of his company. Meanwhile, Soo-tak visits the employees sent to the hospital by Bong-soon's family, including the 2 lovebirds hit by the love charm. After visiting her usual shaman, Jin-yi learns that Bong-soon is involved with school bullies and goes home to scold her without asking for an explanation. Bong-soon starts crying and finally confronts Jin-yi for being so biased. At the hospital, Hee-ji finally confesses her feelings for Bong-ki, but he rejects her, citing his relationship with Guk-do. He also reveals that Bong-soon has liked Guk-do for a long time, but before he can explain further, Bong-soon interrupts. She advises Hee-ji and Bong-ki to stop spending time together to prevent their feelings from growing. Before leaving, Bong-soon warns Hee-ji not to hurt Guk-do and asks her to stay away from Bong-ki. Meanwhile, the police trace a clue to a theater company showing a play about a man and his 7 brides. Unbeknownst to them, the kidnapper is in the audience, enjoying the show. Afterward, they question another suspect whose boots match those from the crime scene, but he explains that his boots had been stolen. After checking his performance schedule, they rule him out, though Guk-do still wants Bong-soon to compare his voice to that of the kidnapper. At the hospital, Jang Hyun tries to capture Kyung-shim, but Bong-soon foils the plan. Everyone chases him, but he disguises himself as a janitor and slips away. Afterward, Guk-do scolds Bong-soon for going after him, making her storm off in anger. Later, Min-hyuk visits the Walnut Bakery, where Chil-gu begs him to look after Bong-soon. Meanwhile, Kwang-bok follows Bong-soon to exact revenge, but Guk-do beats him mercilessly until Bong-soon intervenes, flinging Guk-do into a corner like a sheet of paper. Min-hyuk watches the whole thing from a corner and only approaches Bong-soon after Guk-do leaves with the gangster. Later, Bong-soon argues with him over her transfer to the strategy department. After throwing Kwang-bok in a cell, Guk-do starts doubting Bong-soon's actual strength. That night, Bong-soon is happy when Jin-yi begins to treat her better than before. The following day, Min-hyuk gives Bong-soon a laptop, telling her to study in preparation for her transfer to the game strategy department. The news about the missing women is finally released, making Bong-soon more determined to catch the kidnapper. Later, Chairman Ahn tells Min-hyuk to announce his engagement to Bong-soon at the upcoming shareholders meeting and also bring her home for a proper introduction. With the increasing number of missing women, the higher-ups decide to involve the Special Crimes Unit, but Guk-do's team wants to catch the culprit first to redeem themselves. Bong-soon also decides to catch the kidnapper before the police, so she starts training seriously. Meanwhile, Bong-soon's minions are bullied by Soo-tak's gangsters, but Bong-soon comes to their aid. She teaches the gangsters an unforgettable lesson, and Soo-tak is furious when he hears the news. Later, Bong-soon tells Kyung-shim that she will be moving back home to protect their neighborhood. When Bong-soon hugs her, Kyung-shim notices that Bong-soon's strength is no longer overwhelming. Elsewhere, Guk-do apologizes to Hee-ji for stringing her along when he clearly is in love with Bong-soon. Hee-ji simply feels relieved that she isn't the only scumbag in their relationship. The next day, Jin-yi dresses up nicely when she hears that Min-hyuk will be visiting, and when he arrives, she drags him inside, only to run into Bong-soon looking a mess. Jin-yi forces Min-hyuk to stay, and she prepares an unusually lavish breakfast just to welcome him. After a hearty breakfast with her family, Bong-soon is forced to sit through another uncomfortable meal with Min-hyuk's family. However, she manages to win over Chairman Ahn, and he gives them his approval. After learning from Chairman Ahn that Min-hyuk was quite a player in the past, Bong-soon starts to suspect that he is actually straight. Her suspicions deepen when he leans closer to fix her seatbelt. Later, Min-hyuk takes Bong-soon to his mother's grave, and after that, he indirectly confesses his growing feelings for her. There, Bong-soon realizes that she might be starting to waver because of Min-hyuk. As the police intensify their efforts to catch the kidnapper, Guk-do heads to the scrapyard after recalling Bong-soon's detailed explanation of the kidnapper's smell. It is then revealed that the kidnapper, Jang-hyun, actually installed surveillance inside the police station, which is why he has been able to stay ahead of them every time. This whole time, Jang-hyun was actually the witness who came in to give his testimony after the second victim was attacked. Meanwhile, Soo-tak invites a Harvard grad to help them whip up a revenge plan against Bong-soon and her grandmother. At the hospital, Bong-ki expresses his desire to date Hee-ji, but Bong-soon tells him not to do it. Before she leaves, Bong-ki urges her to start dating Min-hyuk, but Bong-soon brushes it off as a joke. The following day, Soo-tak and his gang prepare for revenge while Bong-soon receives a call from Min-hyuk to meet up. She then reads her grandmother's letter, urging her not to be ashamed of her strength. Finally ready to embrace it, Bong-soon takes out the pink hoodie she wore in the past while saving a bus full of people back then. Later, Soo-tak's gang uses voice phishing to lure Bong-soon out, pretending they kidnapped her mother. Bong-soon immediately bolts out to meet them, leaving Min-hyuk waiting on the street, but Kyung-shim and Chil-gu later discover that it is a scam. Min-hyuk calls Bong-soon, and she tells him about the kidnapping, but she suddenly hangs up, making him panic. He then frantically searches for her while Chil-gu calls to report the incident to Guk-do. Bong-soon later arrives at the agreed location only to find Soo-tak and his gang of miscreants. Bong-soon is extremely pissed when she discovers that she has been tricked by them. Without hesitation, Bong-soon takes them down using everything Min-hyuk taught her. Min-hyuk arrives at the scene and finally realizes that Bong-soon is the pink hoodie girl whom he has been searching for. Guk-do also arrives and is stunned to witness Bong-soon's power for the very first time. While Bong-soon is distracted, Kwang-bok tries to stab her, but Min-hyuk takes the hit instead. Fortunately, they rush him to the hospital on time, and he regains consciousness shortly after. Meanwhile, Guk-do realizes he had been blind to Bong-soon's strength all along, despite seeing the signs back in school. Min-hyuk tells him to pretend he didn't see anything since Bong-soon wants him to still see her as a fragile girl. Later, Bong-ki begs Guk-do not to arrest Kwang-bok since Min-hyuk already dropped all charges against him. Apparently, he did this to keep the truth about Bong-soon's strength under wraps. Bong-soon's family arrives at the hospital to thank Min-hyuk for saving her, and to express her gratitude, Jin-yi offers Bong-soon to Min-hyuk as a gift. Later, Guk-do is pissed when he learns that his team has been banned from investigating the kidnapping case any further. At Jang-hyun's hideout, the victims try to scream for help, but that only angers Jang-hyun even more. Guk-do somehow gets a breakthrough in the case and rushes out to confirm his suspicions. At the hospital, Hee-ji tells Bong-ki about Guk-do's secret crush, and she confirms her feelings for Bong-ki once again. Out of respect for his relationship with Guk-do, Bong-ki tells her to give him more time, but Hee-ji refuses. She, however, promises to give up if things don't work out between them after 5 dates. Meanwhile, Soo-tak visits the hospital to scold Kwang-bok for using a weapon when he specifically warned them not to. Jin-yi also arrives to teach Soo-tak a lesson, but before she can make a move, Chairman Ahn beats her to it. Later, Min-hyuk argues with his father while trying to convince him not to blow the stabbing issue out of proportion. Guk-do finally arrives at the scrapyard and is surprised when he discovers it actually belongs to Jong-hyun, who was also a witness in the case. He finds this suspicious and searches around for a clue, but finds nothing. He then rushes back to the station to tell them about his suspicions, and they believe him. After witnessing Min-hyuk and his father argue earlier, Bong-soon tries to comfort Min-hyuk, even though he attempts to push her away. Later, Min-hyuk asks Bong-soon about the bus incident back then, and she finally comes clean about it. Bong-soon explains that it was the first time she used her powers for someone else. After getting that out of the way, the relationship between Bong-soon and Min-hyuk further improves. Her family even hangs out in his room, and after they leave, Soo-tak visits to apologize, but Min-hyuk kicks him out. On his way out, Soo-tak apologizes to Bong-soon and begs her not to spread the news about his miserable defeat. When Bong-soon returns to the room, Min-hyuk is over the moon. The police soon receive the news about another missing girl, but they almost strike Jang-hee off their suspect list because he never left his house during their stakeout. Back at the hospital, romance brews between Min-hyuk and Bong-soon, but Min-hyuk single-handedly ruins the moment for Bong-soon. While Bong-soon pretends to be sleeping, Min-hyuk gently watches her, and as soon as he falls asleep, Bong-soon also stares at him while thinking about how he saved her. Min-hyuk suddenly opens his eyes, and the two lovebirds stare into each other's souls. The following day, the video of Bong-soon beating up the gangsters in her neighborhood goes viral. Apparently, Bong-soon's students had edited out her face and posted the video online. Meanwhile, the cops continue to stake out the scrapyard while Jang-hyun takes an interest in Guk-do and sets his eyes on his next target, Hee-ji. He drives out, and the police soon lose sight of him. He later stakes out Hee-ji's studio, and it is revealed that he already bugged her purse after bumping into her earlier. At the hospital, Guk-do arrives to take Bong-soon to the station because of the case, but Min-hyuk protests. He explains that he doesn't want her to get hurt, but Bong-soon still goes. Hearing Min-hyuk worry so much about Bong-soon makes Guk-do jealous, so he states a claim on her protection before storming out. Bong-soon finally talks to Guk-do about her powers, but he assures her that he doesn't mind it. Guk-do then expresses his displeasure with the fact that Min-hyuk saved her instead of him. As an awkward silence settles between them, Bong-soon switches the topic to the kidnapping case. Later at the station, Guk-do plays a recording of the scrapyard owner's voice, and Bong-soon instantly recognizes it as the same one from the subway and the fake doctors. However, they are suddenly informed that another person has been arrested as the culprit, but Bong-soon refuses to accept it. Bong-soon tries to convince the police while the real kidnapper, Jang-hyun, is pissed that someone stole his credit. After failing to convince the police, Bong-soon returns to the hospital to see Min-hyuk in the hospital, while Guk-do doesn't want her to be by Min-hyuk's side. Min-hyuk tells Bong-soon to stop liking Guk-do and suggests that she can like him instead, but Bong-soon treats it as a joke. Guk-do refuses to accept the outcome of the kidnapping case and decides to rough up Jang-hyun to force him to confess, but Jang-hyun doesn't budge. After Guk-do's visit, Jang-hyun decides to also target Bong-soon. Soon, the news breaks that the police arrested the wrong culprit, and Min-hyuk tells Gong to transfer Bong-soon to her dream department in order to keep her away from trying to play hero. Truly, Bong-soon is already researching the case, but she briefly forgets about it when she hears the news of her transfer. She quickly calls to thank Min-hyuk, who was already anxiously waiting for her call. Meanwhile, the police chief scolds Guk-do's team because of the incident with Jang-hyun. Still, Guk-do refuses to back down, gives up his badge, and returns to the scrapyard to find the missing girls. He almost gets into another fight with Jang-hyun, but his comrades stop him in time. After calming Gukdu down, they let him know that they believe him because the theater members already recognize Jang-hyun as an obsessed audience member. While Bong-soon is busy celebrating her promotion, Jin-yi goes to the hospital to take care of Min-hyuk. The following day, Bong-soon wakes up from a Romeo and Juliet knockoff scene between her and Min-hyuk. Later, she happily heads to work, where Gong has prepared a surprise welcome ceremony for her. To congratulate her, Min-hyuk gives her an expensive bag, but the only thing that makes Bong-soon excited is her employee card. However, all her initial excitement vanishes when Min-hyuk shows her the new workspace he prepared. Rather than placing her with the rest of the team, he simply put a new sign on her doghouse-like corner, claiming she will be interning there before eventually transitioning to the main strategy department. Later, during a meeting, Bong-soon is surprised to see the gangster, Kwang-bok's doppelganger named Dong-byung. Gong assures her that Dong-byung doesn't have a twin and, in fact, he is actually an only child. After the meeting, Dong-byung approaches Bong-soon to assert his dominance as a senior employee. After the shakedown, Bong-soon is depressed because Min-hyuk didn't keep his promise to let her join her dream team. She goes to complain to Min-hyuk, and he makes Dong-byung give her some work, but this only angers Dong-byung further, making him bully her. Bong-soon puts up with his bullying until he hits her in the face, making her pissed. To teach him a lesson, she secretly pins him to the wall using a giant table. Min-hyuk tries to convince Bong-soon to set Dong-byung free, but she refuses, so he goes to the conference room with Gong to help Dong-byung. Later, Bong-soon overhears Min-hyuk and Gong talking about her. Min-hyuk was just about to tell Gong why he blocked a knife for Bong-soon, but he stops mid-sentence when he discovers that she is eavesdropping on them. Still, this short encounter stirs up some feelings between Bong-soon and Min-hyuk. After they arrive home that night, Min-hyuk gently pulls Bong-soon down and rests his head on her lap. Though caught off guard, she remains still, allowing him to stay until he falls asleep. Later, she heads to his basement, only to finally realize that the woman painted on his secret door is her. On her way home, Bong-soon receives a text from Gukdu asking to meet the next day. Meanwhile, Gukdu's captain puts his badge on the line and decides to raid Jang-hyun's hideout without a warrant, making Gukdu happy. Later that night, Hee-ji prepares for her first date with Bong-ki, unaware of the danger lurking outside. Min-hyuk, on the other hand, finally wakes up to find that Bong-soon has left, but he is still pleased to see a small note from her. When Bong-soon gets home, she receives several journals from her grandmother, filled with records of her powerful predecessors. Her grandmother also instructs her to keep a personal journal of her own, to be passed down to the next generation. Later, Bong-soon confides in Kyung-shim that she may have feelings for Min-hyuk. They are still talking when Jin-yi suddenly bursts into the room, announcing that Min-hyuk is waiting for Bong-soon outside. Bong-soon rushes out to meet him, and Min-hyuk says he has something important to tell her, but after hesitating, he merely claims that he is in pain. Bong-soon laughs, assuming it is a joke, but Min-hyuk suddenly takes her hand and places it over his heart, declaring that his heart hurts. Pulling her closer, he finally confesses that he likes her, leaving Bong-soon completely speechless. After their meeting, Bong-soon rushes back inside, panicking, but Jin-yi refuses to give her space to process Min-hyuk's words. Min-hyuk happily returns home, thinking about the encounter and how Bong-soon had asked for time to sort out her feelings. Meanwhile, Bong-soon is restless, and soon a message from both Min-hyuk and Gukdu inviting her to watch a movie worsens things further. That night, Gukdu and even Dong-byung made an appearance in Bong-soon's Romeo and Juliet knockoff series. The following day, Dong-byung continues to torment Bong-soon, but she shuts him up by showing off her strength. Later, Bong-soon messages Min-hyuk and Gukdu, turning down their movie invitation. Min-hyuk is happy that she sent him a casual message, while Gukdu is confused that Bong-soon used honorifics. While trying to work, Bong-soon can't seem to get Min-hyuk out of her mind. When Min-hyuk sends her a message, she panics after discovering that she interchanged the message between Min-hyuk and Gukdu, hence the confusion. Elsewhere, Gukdu happily purchases a necklace for Bong-soon and calls to meet her, but she makes up excuses to avoid him. Refusing to give up, Gukdu informs her that he will be coming to her office and advises her to stop hanging out with Min-hyuk. Later, Bong-soon overhears some employees talking about Min-hyuk's interview, where he openly revealed that he likes a girl from the company. When he returns to the company, Bong-soon starts to see Min-hyuk in a new light, and he even grabs her hand in front of the whole company. Afterwards, Min-hyuk decides to help Bong-soon work on her new game. During lunch, Min-hyuk and Bong-soon's relationship progresses smoothly, despite interference from the rowdy drag queen, Dong-byung. To teach Dong-byung a lesson for being a drama queen, Bong-soon wraps a metal chopstick around his wrist, leaving him stunned. As the day progresses, Bong-soon falls harder for Min-hyuk, while Gong consoles Dong-byung, who has just discovered that his crush, Min-hyuk, likes women, especially Bong-soon. Later, Guk-do arrives at Bong-soon's company, but he leaves after receiving a call informing him that Jang-hyun is now targeting Hee-ji. Meanwhile, Bong-soon heads to the company's cafe to wait for Guk-do, while Min-hyuk is jealous when he hears about it. Guk-do arrives just in time to see Hee-ji and Bong-ki preparing for their date, and he tells them about the kidnapper targeting Hee-ji. After waiting for an eternity for Guk-do, Bong-soon decides to leave, but Min-hyuk arrives to comfort her. He begs Bong-soon to return his feelings, but she tries to push him away, insisting that she is different from ordinary women. Min-hyuk simply tells her that it doesn't matter to him, and when she continues to hesitate, he takes the initiative and gently pulls her into an embrace. Later, Bong-soon and Min-hyuk leave the company together, overflowing with happiness. Meanwhile, Guk-do rushes back to the cafe only to discover that Bong-soon is long gone, so he calls her, but she ignores his call. After dropping Bong-soon home that night, Min-hyuk reminds her not to change her mind, and she agrees. Hyung-sik witnesses the whole scene and asks Bong-soon about it, but a call from Guk-do interrupts them. Since Bong-soon refuses to pick up his call, he calls Hyung-sik instead, asking her to tell Bong-soon to meet him outside her house. Bong-soon agrees to meet him, and Guk-do apologizes before telling her that the kidnapper is targeting Hee-ji because of him. Bong-soon tells him to go be with Hee-ji, but he informs her that she is with Bong-ki. Guk-do then tries to confess his feelings for her, but Bong-soon immediately friend-zones him. It is then revealed that Guk-do has actually liked Bong-soon since their school days, but he has only just come to realize his true feelings now. The following day, Hee-ji goes to the station, and Guk-do shows her a picture of the suspect while Jang-hyun monitors them through the hidden cameras. At the office, Bong-soon happily works on a presentation with Min-hyuk for her new game, and they draw attention from coworkers during lunch. Just as Sutak decides to give up the gangster life, Bong-soon's minions arrive at the hospital to get revenge on his employees. While the world is in chaos, Bong-soon and Min-hyuk spend time together, developing their relationship. That night, the police keep a close watch on Hee-ji, but Jang-hyun still chases after her. The police catch up with Hee-ji. Unbeknownst to them, Jang-hyun has already captured Hyung-sik in another town. After the failed operation, everyone is frustrated, but Guk-do finally recalls seeing Jang-hyun working with surveillance equipment. Later, Jang-hyun, pretending to be Hyung-sik, uses her phone to text Bong-soon, and he finally discovers that Bong-soon will lose her powers if she hurts an innocent person. Due to Guk-do's discovery, the team finally discovers Jang-hyun's hidden cameras. It is then revealed that the scrapyard employee is actually an accomplice who helps Jang-hyun take care of his victims. That night, Min-hyuk is over the moon when Bong-soon sweetly replies to his message. The following day, he shows Bong-soon the finished character for her new game, modeled after her. Bong-soon is thrilled, but her excitement is quickly crushed when Dong-byung calls her game trash. Meanwhile, Sutak is trying to live a quiet, normal life, but Bong-soon's minions refuse to let him have any peace. They even track him to a temple where he is training to become a monk. A fight nearly breaks out between them until an Indian monk named Nizamuddin steps in to intervene. Meanwhile, Bong-soon and Min-hyuk hide in an empty seminar room. When Min-hyuk leans closer and promises to protect her from the world, the atmosphere between them grows tense. He asks her once more if she likes him, but Bong-soon only responds with a smile, and from that alone, Min-hyuk realizes that she might return his feelings. Min-hyuk is content with that and jumps around in excitement before leaning in to plant a kiss on Bong-soon's forehead. Later, he takes her to a seaside resort, claiming that it is to help her prepare for her upcoming presentation. While working on the presentation, Min-hyuk gets carried away while watching Bong-soon ramble. To clear his mind, Min-hyuk drags Bong-soon out to have fun, and while they are on the beach, he confesses his feelings again, telling her to choose him. After a little hesitation, Bong-soon finally takes a step towards him, and the two lovebirds lock lips, confirming the start of their relationship. That night, Min-hyuk drives Bong-soon back home, but neither of them wants the date to end, so Min-hyuk begs Bong-soon to stay still for a moment, explaining that he doesn't want to be away from her. He then thanks her for coming into his life and finally allows her to go inside. Bong-soon returns home, beaming with happiness, and Bong-ki even notices the switch in her personality. Before leaving, Bong-ki reminds Bong-soon to text Kyung-shim, which she does, but Kyung-shim's reply immediately raises her suspicions. Panicking, Bong-soon quickly calls Guk-do and asks him to trace Kyung-shim's smartwatch. Although Guk-do assures her that Kyung-shim is safe, Bong-soon remains unconvinced because Kyung-shim never calls her by her full name, the way she did in the text. Bong-soon's fears are confirmed when she asks Kyung-shim about a non-existent pet, and Kyung-shim replies that the pet is doing well. Meanwhile, Guk-do tracks Kyung-shim's smartwatch to an underground homeless shelter, making the police realize they have been played. Guk-do's captain decides to raid the scrapyard without a warrant, and although the police chief threatens to fire them, everyone ignores him. In the meantime, Bong-soon rushes to the scrapyard to find the kidnapper, while Min-hyuk is busy thinking about their romantic encounter. Guk-do tries to stop Bong-soon from doing anything rash, while the police question the scrapyard employee, but he pretends not to know anything. Bong-soon suddenly perceives the same scent as the one on the kidnapper, and she frantically searches around, but finds nothing. Afterwards, Guk-do finally manages to convince Bong-soon to go back home. Meanwhile, Min-hyuk happily prepares a necklace for Bong-soon and places a tiny tracker inside it. While at home, Bong-soon receives another text from Kyung-shim with a video of the kidnapper, warning her not to work with the police. He then instructs her to find him soon, or Kyung-shim will be eliminated. Bong-soon bursts into tears after watching the video, and she rushes over to Min-hyuk's house, begging him to help her. Thanks for watching till the end, and make sure to comment, Bong-soon is my hero for part 2.